How Ridouan Taghi became the most wanted Dutchman. Sir, who is Ridouan Taghi? Life as the alleged leader of a criminal organization that deals with cooked ham worldwide is not easy, especially when you are at the same time one of the most wanted men in Europe. Ridan Tagi was both. He was linked to trading large quantities of cooked ham all over the world and was out to kill anyone who stood in his way. He even went so far as to kill a well-known Dutch journalist in broad daylight to send a message to the rest of the world. But unfortunately for him, there was one opponent he could not beat. Ridan Tagi was born on December 20th, 1977, in the north of Morocco. In 1980, he moved to the Netherlands with his family. It did not take long before he became a member of a street gang called the Bad Boys. This street gang was mainly focused on petty crime and was not well organized. In 1992, Taghi was prosecuted for the first time in his life. He was arrested for burglary and possession of weapons. 2 years later, 17-year-old Taghi decided to quit school and focus on smuggling hash. This was his first preference to start with, but it wasn't long before he took the next step. That next step was coke. Despite his previous convictions, Taghi stayed under the radar for a long time. He knew that if he wanted to make it big, he had to go out. It was not until 2013 that his name appeared in a police report. The Spanish police came across his name because a Moroccan man had been murdered there. In 2019, slowly but surely, they received the information that he was a major drug dealer. The Spanish police handed over the limited information they had to the Netherlands, which subsequently ended up in the archives. It remained quiet around him for a few years, but in 2015, everything changed. Ibrahim Buzu reported the crime against Taghi and his right-hand man, Sai Rizuki. Buzu did this because he knew he was on Taghi's death list. Taghi wanted him dead because Buzu had helped kidnap a coffee shop owner who was good friends with Taghi. 2015 was also the year in which a large group of men were arrested for a major armed robbery. After cracking and analyzing their PGP phones, it became clear that they were Taghi's accomplices. He started to gain some fame. But when the police really wanted to go after him, it was already far too late. Ridan Tagi became so immensely rich in such a short time that he could gain his freedom by buying it. It was perhaps one of his smartest moves because while the police didn't seem to pay much attention, Taghi built up a coke empire that became one of the largest in the world. From the end of 2015, Taghi's power and madness only really became clear. He was absolutely ruthless. Anyone who stood in Taghi's way was tackled, and his way of acting was anything but friendly. In 2015, he had an employee of the spy shop in Nieuwegein murdered because he thought that person had given information about him to the police, but it wasn't confirmed that this was true. On April 17, 2016, Samir Ragip was also murdered because he allegedly talked. This gruesome story is really unbelievable. When Taghi gave up on an attempt on his life, Samir knew this and stayed under the radar. This made Taghi furious, and he lost his patience. He offered the hitters €1 million to enter Samir's house and eliminate his entire family because he didn't want to come out himself. A few days later, Samir left the house. The hitters were waiting, and when he came back, they shot up Samir in his car. He did not survive. If you find that scary, then realize that they did that while his 7-year-old daughter was sitting next to him. The arrested hitter later confessed that the fact that his daughter was in the car was the reason he did not give him a last headshot. The little girl survived the attack. On May 9, 2016, Abderrahim Belhaj was killed. He allegedly stole 2 blocks of coke from Taghi. It was not about the value of the stolen coke, about $100. That was change for Taghi. It was to show everyone that you should not steal from him. Otherwise, bad things will happen. On December 8, 2016, Martin was shot dead in his car. Martin was a crime blogger who often talked about Taghi and other criminals on his blog. He survived an attack earlier that year in which an explosive exploded under his car. On December 8th, he was walking in Amsterdam with someone who lured him. While they were walking, another person came from behind and tried to shoot him in the head. The gun jammed. Martin didn't even notice. Later that day, the job was still done. They followed Martin in his car and shot him, killing him. In January 2007, Taghi tried to kill someone who had also talked about him. The hitters unfortunately had the wrong person. This mistake would be the beginning of Taghi's downfall. He was completely in shock, the Dubai police reported. Dubai is a hotspot for crime all over the world. They all thought they could enjoy the beautiful city while running their drug trade at the same time. But unfortunately for them, the Dubai police cleared the streets and fought all the criminals living in their city. The Dubai police tracked more than 10 people who were allegedly in contact with Taghi. This led them to a luxury hideout in a villa where Taghi could possibly be. The villa looked deserted. All the shutters were closed. There were no cars, and during the day there was no movement. At night, there was one man who threw out the garbage every evening. This was a signal to the police that there were indeed people in the house. But who? Well, it was the mastermind behind the Angels of Death, Mr. Taghi himself. Taghi never left the house. The house was guarded 24 hours a day, and there was only one man who helped him. This man provided him with food, medicine, took out the garbage, and everything else Taghi needed. When the Dubai police knew for sure that someone was hiding in the house, they decided to make a plan to invade the house. The police only had one 10-year-old photo of Taghi, so they weren't sure what to expect or if the person they would find in the house was the one they were looking for. The Dutch news reported that he may have had surgery to change his face and appearance. When the Dubai police came in, they immediately found a man. The man seemed in shock. He couldn't believe his eyes. He immediately surrendered and did not resist his arrest. Later, it was confirmed that this man was indeed Ridouan Taghi, one of the world's most violent criminals and largest drug traffickers. In the house, the police found large amounts of money piled up under the benches, several laptops, smartphones, and Dutch magazines that had written about his crimes. At the time of his arrest, he drank red wine and watched TV. He told the police that he was already his own prisoner, that he had no freedom, and over the years had become very paranoid. He was immediately extradited to the Netherlands under very tight security. He was transported in a private plane, flying in a group with other planes as security during the journey. After years of smuggling kilos of drugs, killing countless people, and making hundreds of millions, Ridan Tagi deservedly lost the fight and ended up in a heavily secured prison in the Netherlands. Now he faces a battle against justice in the Netherlands, which will try to prosecute him for all the murders and all the coke that ended up on the streets through his hands. Justice has someone on their side who knows Taghi well. Do you remember the hitter who killed the wrong person? This turned out to be a good friend of one of Taghi's highest members. He felt terrible about it and started talking to the police. Now he is the most important informant of the public prosecutor's office, and thus Taghi's biggest enemy ever. Taghi and his gang have already murdered the brother of this informant and even his lawyer as revenge, but it was already too late. From a young boy who was involved in petty thieving, stealing, and smuggling hash, to ultimately one of the world's cruelest and most dangerous coke smugglers, this was the story of Ridouan Taghi, a man who took people's lives like it was nothing. His time is probably up. He is looking at a life sentence in a maximum security prison since the evidence is piling up against him. What do you think? Is Ridouan Taghi one of the most ruthless criminals ever? Let us know in the comments. Thanks for watching.